I'm gonna tell y'all about the craziest relationship I ever had in my life. Now, I'm telling y'all this so y'all understand why I have so much knowledge and wisdom on making good choices in relationships. Needless to say, I made a lot of bad choices previously, but this situation I'm gonna tell you about, this relationship was from the ages of 19 to 21, so I was a baby. Now, I moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for college, and at this point, I had dropped out of college. I was 19, and I had just moved into my first apartment. So I did have some family in Milwaukee, so that was the reason that I kind of decided to stay out there. I was working, I had gotten more responsibility and like a higher title at the nonprofit that I was working for. And I met this guy. I moved there in, I want to say October. I was working two jobs, and then I met him. I started dating him in December. I don't remember exactly when I met him, but I started dating him in December. By the time we were dating, I was 19 and a half. He was 27 going on 28, or 26 going on 27. He was about 7 years older than me, which was kind of like a thing for me as far as the guys that I had a crush on. They were usually that age, but I had never dated any of them. Well, he was naturally running circles around me. He knew about things. He knew how to handle situations that I didn't even know existed yet. I mean, it was wild. I lived in a really nice apartment building that was right off 27th Estate. It was my first apartment. I was paying $550, and it was a one bedroom, but it was a lofted one bedroom. It was so nice. So I used to see this guy all the time, like in the hallway or whatever, and I mean, he would give me a look and we would speak or whatever, but kind of find out he was a drug dealer. And so I used to smoke weed back then. And I guess I bought some weed from him, and then I just like would buy weed from him periodically. And I'm sure he used to flirt, and I used to maybe flirt back or whatever. Because I started like, okay, he cute. I like the way he dressed, and he's funny. He has swag. He had a personality about him. So I'm sure I was feeling him. I really don't remember how it began, but I'm sure I was feeling him. And it just went on like supplementing my income with selling weed as well. So I got to the point that I started to buy like ounces from him or whatever. So he used to come into my apartment. We would sit down and really do business. I always wanted to weigh everything out. And he would always be like, no, I can eyeball it, it's all good. And I just wasn't going for that. So I think the way that he liked the way that I would go back and forth with him. And we just kind of like developed a relationship from that, started with that. I'm going to fast forward a few months in because this was so long ago, I really don't remember everything that went down in the beginning. But I can say, um, it was pretty toxic, but it was like my first real relationship because, mind you, I'm 19 and a half when it started. And I can remember, like, for Valentine's Day, him buying me edible arrangements, like chocolate covered strawberries and like some flowers. And that was my first time just like receiving anything like that. And I was just like hooked on him. He liked me because I was very clean. I wasn't out there bogus. I was very mature because according to him, he didn't really date young girls because they was all like for the streets or whatever, but I wasn't like that. So, and he really was like a very reserved kind of guy. He was a street dude, but he wasn't like a gangbanger. Like he was connected, but he was really about his money. So he did sell drugs, but he's like crack and stuff. He sold weed predominantly until later in the relationship he started to get into other stuff, and that's around the time that we broke up. But anyway, in the beginning he was really just selling weed, but he was selling pounds. He had weight for real, and he was selling guns as well, which is something that I didn't like. But yeah, so in the beginning I was just learning all of this stuff about him. And I worked two jobs at the time. So he at my second job I used to get off downtown Milwaukee at the government, the federal building at midnight. So he used to come pick me up all the time. So which I really like regardless if he could spend time with me after he picked me up or not, he would make sure to come pick me up. And if he couldn't come pick me up, he would send somebody to come get me, which I thought was so sexy. So a lot of times it was his brother that would come pick me up, and they never was like flirting with me or being making me feel uncomfortable or anything like that. But they would come pick me up and take me to the crib. He lived next door. Did I say that? So at some point, he told me he lived next door with his brother's baby mama and their kids, because his brother was locked up or whatever. I really don't remember, but I just know that he lived next door with his brother's baby mama and her two sons, which were not his brother's kids, but he used to help out with the kids or whatever. And I see her all the time, and she'll be very friendly, and she will always speak, and it was just like that. The kids would speak to me, and it was cute. So I did have the typical issues with him that you would have with somebody that sells drugs. I mean, he was gone a lot, and he would be like, he loved shooting dice, so he would be gone shooting dice for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. And even when I was like, I didn't really believe that, he used to bring his friends to my house sometimes, and they would really do that. Like I remember one year they were literally shooting dice under the Christmas tree. I mean, for hours on end. So again, if you know, you know. And so he was just like, okay, you know what, like I'll bring it over there if you know want me to be around or whatever. So there was a lot of arguing through text messages, and him just responding okay or telling me to shut up or something like that. But he wouldn't like ever call me like the B word or anything like that. It wasn't like super blatantly disrespectful. It was just a kind of argument where I'm young and I'm like, I want you to be here and I want to do this and I want to do that. And a lot of times he would finish my sentences, and that's what I mean. This man was running circles around me. Like he already knew, like, hey, you want me to be all soft and sensitive, you want me to do this and do that. And I used to be so like, oh my God, like how does he know? I used to just think he was so raw. And I didn't, it's like because he's been in plenty of relationships by this point. He had a baby mama that he was with for years and years and years. They had 2 kids. So at some point, I don't know if I went through his phone or what. I think I went through his phone. This is one of my first big fights, and I seen that he was like dealing with some lady, and how he explained it to me like, oh, he was like, oh, I'm just getting money from her. I don't really care about her. I'm just getting the money. It's income tax season, so she not the only one. Like, it's plenty of these little girls, I'm getting their money. Da, da, da. And I just had such a problem with that. So I argued him up and down, like, what kind? I thought you was a real man, and you're supposed to be this big time drug dealer, but you need to get money from women, and like they got kids, and it was a whole thing, and I hated it. I hated it so much, but I did not break up with him. I just always looked at him like, oh, he has potential because he has such a big heart and he's been through so much stuff in life, and he just needs somebody to, that's like on the level that I am, to show him this and that, whatever. I can't even think specifically of what I was imagining, but women, how we tend to think when we're in that delusion of changing somebody.